you. You can always ring people. So can I help you? What would you like to ask me a question on the stuff? Wait, hold on a second. It has been changed indeed. So, okay, so someone is, sorry, it's Valentine, isn't it? Yeah. So Valentine's just handed me, what he's done is printed off the original program that we had on the website. So a couple of things have changed. We had 5 presentations change. Such was demand that the spots were immediately taken up. One of them was Little Green Farmer. So it is not presenting this afternoon. So if you grab here, I'll give you this one. That's the updated. You've got one, so it's the updated version of it. So yes, if you're working off the old one, that is incorrect. Just grab one of these ones here. My morning tea is coming to me at the table. I so enjoyed the apple turnovers that I sent a mignon back. Not really. Thank you very much, Minion. I very much appreciate it. Right, Siobhan Lancaster would love to come up and join us. She is going to be my final Irish connection today. Then I think we'll stop that discussion. But with a name like Siobhan, I could not mention an Irish connection. So yes, she does have roots back in Ireland and mother's side. Correct, mother's side, and that's how she got this fabulous name. But like many Irish people, they've ended up here in Australia. And she is actually the managing director of our first company in this session to present, and that, of course, is 92 Energy. They're exploring the highest grade lithium region in the world, and that's over in Canada. And as she's going to outline to us, 92 Energy has a world-class exploration team. They've already uncovered the Gemini mineralized zone within the Gemini project, and they're seeing some really encouraging signs of radioactivity. It's interesting how that becomes encouraging in a setting like this, and encouraging signs of radioactivity over in the nearby Tower project. Would you please make her welcome?
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be presenting about 92 Energy. And today I'm here to talk about discovering uranium in the Athabasca Basin of Canada. So the Athabasca Basin is the highest grade uranium district globally, and we've had a lot of success with the drill bit very early on in our life as a company. We've discovered the Gemini mineralized zone on our 4th drill hole ever as a company, and we've also had this success at Tower recently where we've intersected radioactivity. So it's a very exciting exploration play in the uranium space, which is also a very exciting space. So you would have probably been here and heard Brendan give a very, very good presentation yesterday about why it is that the world needs nuclear energy. It's a crucial element for decarbonising our globe and a very exciting space to be in. We're certainly starting to see a sentiment shift in the market, and we're starting to see the uranium price move as well. So the spot price over the last few days has started moving, and I think it's going to be the outstanding commodity performing next year. So it's a really great place to be in. So on that note, I'll run you through our projects and what we've done to date. So the key investment points: we're exploring for uranium in the highest grade district in the world, the Athabasca Basin. Some have called it the Saudi Arabia of uranium. The grades there are up to 15% uranium. In fact, there was a recent resource that went which as the grade. So very, very high grades compared to your African projects, which, for example, are 500 ppm on average. We've had, as I said, a lot of early success with the Gmz Discovery, and we recently intersected radioactivity at Tower. So we're very, very, very successful with the drill bit, and it's a very exciting team to work with. They love uranium exploration and they really know the Athabasca Basin very well. And of course, as I alluded to, the uranium market fundamentals, they're the best fundamentals we've seen in many, many years. You're starting to see the risk moving from the producers across to the utilities. This is very important. Long-term contracting has resumed for the first time in 10 years since Fukushima. So you're really starting to see a lot of movement in that market. And as Brandon put up that lovely diagram yesterday, you can see this huge emerging gap between the supply and demand forecasted into the future. So it's very, very well positioned, the uranium market, for going forward. This is a little bit about the Athabasca Basin. So we have 6 fantastic projects in the Athabasca Basin in Canada. The Athabasca Basin is located in Saskatchewan, which has been voted the second best mining jurisdiction in the world. I think it sort of changes places with Western Australia on a regular basis. So it's either Western Australia that's in front or it's Saskatchewan. So it's a great place to do business and a great place to be mining. We have these 6 projects, 3 of which we purchased from ISO Energy during our IPO, which was only a year and a half ago. You can see that we have the Gemini mineralized zone, the GMZ. It's right on the edge of the basin, so a fantastic location. It basically means that when you're drilling, the drill holes are a lot more shallow and they tend to be basement hosted deposits as opposed to those hosted in sandstone. So the rocks are a lot more competent if you are to make a discovery there. And of course, you can see our, Tower project. That is only 10 kilometers from Cigar Lake, which is the highest grading uranium mine in the world. It has average grades of 15%. So really best street in the best jurisdiction is how I would describe it. Fantastic location. And we're very excited by those radioactivity results that we've had to date. And of course, the Gmz Discovery is starting to look very similar to the Rabbit Lake uranium deposit, which was a mine which mined around 40 million pounds of uranium at about 0.3%. So the reason it looks similar, it's got a very similar grade profile, but it's also similar in terms of the depth and the fact that it was basement hosted as well. So that was an open pit mine in the Athabasca Basin. It was very economic. And so it's a very nice position to be in for our company. So just a few highlights about the Gmz Discovery. It is, as I said, a near surface uranium discovery with open pit potential. Starts 60 meters vertically below surface and goes down to 210 meters. We have had recent high grade assay results, so 43 meters at 0.62%. So I've put ppm in here for the Australian investors to understand that's 6,190 ppm. So if you compare that to your projects in Namibia, which are grading around 500 ppm, these grades are absolutely humongous. The 6 meters at 2.17% for those gold buffs in the room is about a 39 grams per ton of gold equivalent. So very, very high grade indeed, just using today's gold and uranium prices. The other good thing about this is we've only just scratched the surface. So we've only drilled 220 meters of a 1.8 kilometers of prospective strike. So lots of upside going forward in this fantastic new discovery. So this is a bit of a show off slide to show how fantastic we are in terms of how quickly we've really been able to progress 92 Energy since its IPO. As I said, we only listed in April 2021. We discovered the Gemini or the GMZ on our 4th drill hole ever. So that was September of 2021. And then we've done 2 drill programs there. So it's seasonal in Canada. You are sort of beholden to the seasons, but the first drill program was a winter drill program. 91% of those holes intersected radioactivity, which of course turned into uranium. And then 81% of the holes in the next project or program intersected uranium mineralization. So fantastic results with the drill bit, and we're really expanding and vectoring in onto those higher grades and thicker intervals as we move forward. I won't go through too much this slide here because obviously all these results are in the ASX announcements, but again, it goes to prove that you can see those intervals are getting thicker and the grades are getting higher. So fantastic place to be. This is just a simple cross-section of some of the results that we've had to date. It really just shows and demonstrates that the mineralized zone is really hanging together really nicely. You can see that high-grade chunk in the middle. That grey area is actually graphite, and you can see as you sort of fall off the graphite, the mineralization starts to sort of taper out. So you really need to have that graphite to have the uranium mineralization. It's great for us to know this because this assists us with doing our geophysics going forward and really working out where those additional potential zones are as we move through the programs. As I said, the grades and depths are very similar to the Rabbit Lake deposit, and that was a near surface mine. So very good place to be. This is just a very simple plan view of the GMZ. So you can see here that it remains open, and you can see that there's certain areas that we're yet to drill. The high grade sort of spins around in a southeasterly direction. And of course, we've got all that area going towards the baseload boundary, which is that area with the blue hatch there that we're yet to drill. We think that's all going to be high grade based on the fact that baseload have got a hole right in the corner there, which is a nice high grade hole as well. So lots of potential upside going down in that direction, but of course expanding in all the other directions as well. This is the slide that gets me most excited about 92 Energy, because the way these deposits tend to be is they tend to come in zones. So for example, Triple R has 5 different zones attached to it. So we think what's happening at the GMZ is that we're drilling into the first of hopefully a few other zones going forward. To be able to prove that up, we're currently doing a geophysics program along this graphitic conductor, which you can see hatched out there in the purple. And that is really going to be a 50-meter ground EM and a drone geophysics program to really try and ascertain where those additional zones might be. So really exciting stuff. We know at Gemini that the high-grade mineralization tends to be associated with strong magnetics. And we also know that the graphite is very important. So those two conditions combined should give us some really good targeting going forward for those additional zones to the north, hopefully. This is just a diagrammatic of the Athabasca Basin deposits. And what's really fascinating about this is you can see that there is a lot of deposits in the Athabasca Basin, but not many of them have actually been mined. So the ones that actually have been mined are those near surface deposits, which tend to be basement hosted, as opposed to the ones that are in the sandstone. And the reason for that is basically because it's just a simpler mining method. Once you get into the sandstone, those rocks are really not as competent. So you have to do these things like freeze the sandstone, which really adds significantly to the cost of mining in the Athabasca Basin. So you can see Cigar Lake and MacArthur River are the exception. They, of course, are massive ore bodies. But they're all mined robotically. So the grade of the uranium there is actually it's a very counterintuitive sort of thing, but the higher the grade, the more the costs are, because you have to mine these deposits with robots. So you sort of want to be where we are in terms of with the GMZ and its average grade, and also in the basement hosted rocks. So these are just some of our young geos, very enthusiastic when they're looking at the core. Obviously, there's been a lot of work for them to go through. I think they're very fortunate because you don't see this sort of uranium that we're seeing very frequently. But what we've got really going forward at Gemini is Uranium Assays, which we're waiting on. We've got that detailed geophysics program. We've just started that. And that will take about 3 weeks to be completed, plus then the 3 weeks of sort of looking through those results. So we'll make a report to the ASX once we've gone through those results. And of course, we'll use that to do the targeting for the winter 2023 program, which is due to start January or February of next year. As I said, the upcoming drill program really is looking at targeting an extension of the GMZ zone and vectoring into that high-grade mineralization, but also to ascertain whether there's any further zones along trend to the north. So this is very exciting as well. It's very rare that you have 2 potential greenfields discoveries on your hand. So we decided we always had wanted to drill Tower, and we obviously had so much success with Gemini straight off the bat that we were unable to drill it. So we've only just come about drilling it. And of course, we've intersected radioactivity in 3 holes in that initial greenfields program. So fantastic results from the team. We're obviously waiting for assay results to find out whether that that radioactivity is actually uranium. But I'm told that there's a pretty high probability that it is. So very exciting. And of course, we'll go back there and drill that further in another drill program. You can see here that there's some really good high priority target follow-up areas there as well. So the highest hole had 960 counts per second in it. That was a very similar result to what we had, of course, at the GMZ when we initially discovered that. So very compelling new targets for follow-up and very exciting for the company. I'm not going to get into the uranium market too much because I think we've probably covered that, but needless to say, the uranium market really is primed to take off. There's a lot of short-term drivers, but there's also those longer-term thematics, including, the recent events and announcements to build 150 nuclear reactors out of China, France announcing it will increase its nuclear builds, and of course, Japan, importantly, announcing that they're restarting their nuclear reactors, but also they're going to have a new build program. So this really shows the importance, and that governments are really starting to think that nuclear has a key role to play in decarbonising our country, our globe, I should say. This is our corporate snapshot. We have two major shareholders, Elliston and ISO Energy. Quite a lot of money in the bank as at 30th of June. Obviously, we're putting out a new quarterly on that. But we're very well positioned. And of course, our board and management team, 80 years plus experience in uranium. I, of course, was part of the Extract Resources team. That is a fantastic exploration story. They discovered HUSAB. Their market cap went from 2 million to 2 billion. And we sold that to CGMPC. So we're hoping to repeat that with 92 Energy. If we could do that, that would be amazing. So just in summary, 92 Energy, it's a fantastic leverage play to the uranium price. Lot of upside with the Gmz Discovery. Tower is a very exciting emerging project, and strong uranium market fundamentals and sentiment. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Siobhan. It is a very exciting project and very topical, and it's one that I think you can all go out of here now after hearing our presentations on uranium over the last few days, and you can share that information as well. It's a discussion that needs to keep going and be had quite reasonably about the potential of this particular mineral. And it could help your investment portfolios as well, which would be just lovely, as we've heard that price starting to reflect the importance that it could play. Now, Azure Minerals is next on stage, and when they first appeared back on our radar, 2020, wasn't it, Tony? 2020? And if you've ever seen them present at our conferences, their focus is firmly on Andover, which is their advanced state nickel, copper and cobalt sulfide project up in the Pilbara. Well, Tony looks pretty happy today, don't you, Tony? He's
always happy.
Oh, you're always happy, but today you're more than happy. And I was looking through all the resources press over the last 24 hours or so. And there we go. Your name was ticked there all the time. It was quite interesting. So I know Tony's going to touch on it. They've got another little discovery alongside their project, which has put the smile on his face and put a little bit of a zing into the share market price. I'll let him tell you more. Would you please welcome Tony Rivera? And Tony is what's your title now? You're MD, aren't you, Tony? Yeah. Would you please make him welcome?
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, and the opportunity to take you through the Azure Minerals story and our Andover project in particular. As it says there, it's the project that keeps on delivering. We've had it for 2 years, initially because of the nickel and copper sulfide potential. We've now taken that through to resource stage and development studies. And very recently, as in over the last couple of days, we've announced the discovery of some very high-grade lithium mineralisation as well on that project. Usual disclaimer and statements, which can be found on our website, which you can read at your leisure. I do acknowledge the traditional owners very strongly for land up there in the Pilbara, on which we operate. It's very important that we have that strong relationship with them. We've spent most of the last 2 years building that relationship, and everything so far has been going really well. A very positive relationship, and it's important that we keep that going for the benefit of all the stakeholders in the company and in our project. Corporately, a quick snapshot there is that market cap, when I did this slide on Monday, we had a market cap of 70 million. Yesterday, it went through $100 million market cap. It's back down around $90 million at the moment. So in a good position there. As far as cash goes, at the end of the last quarter, we had about $10 million in the bank. Since then, since that was reported, we received a payment of $4 million from sale of our Mexican assets. And then we've been obviously spending money over the last few months as well. So we're sitting there with about $8 million in the bank at the moment. Two largest shareholders, German investment fund Deutsche Balaton and the Creasy Group, Mark Creasy, very famous West Australian prospector, highly successful, sitting there with 16% as a result of selling into Azure one of his nickel projects. And that is the Andover project. So we bought the 60% ownership from Creasy for shares in our company. In July of 2020, we were on the ground drilling in October of 2020. So that's exactly 2 years ago. We've been drilling non-stop with diamond drilling, and we've had incredible success finding and identifying and defining to resource status this nickel and copper sulfide mineralisation. And then as a result of the more regional exploration that we were doing for the nickel, we also identified outcropping pegmatites. We identified that they contain spodumene, which is a lithium-rich mineral. And last week and then yesterday, we put out some announcements on that, and I'll talk about that in a second. And we have a very large pipeline of projects going forward. What we're looking at doing on the Andover project, it's a bit over 100 square kilometres of land, but it is starting to look like we're developing a new mineral province. In particular, it's a nickel province. It's a new nickel province in Western Australia. And the exploration that we've been doing has identified at least 4 deposits plus a number of other very highly prospective areas that we're currently drilling. So we've implemented a dual pathway strategy for the nickel where we undertake exploration and resource definition drilling. At the same time, we're running development studies into building and operating a nickel mine there. It's likely it'll be a form of hub and spoke type operation, which a hub and spoke is you have a centralized processing facility, which is fed by ore from several mines that would be surrounding it. So we've identified a number of deposits and it's looking very positive to have several developing mines feeding into a central processing facility. It's important that you have a really good team, and we do. We were able to, by acquiring this project in the middle of 2020, we were able to then staff up very quickly in a period in which there was a downturn in the industry. You know, post the identification of COVID, everything went in a bit of a slump for about 6 months. In the middle of that slump, we acquired the project and we acquired people. We employed a really good team. And this team has spent a lot of time. They are dedicated to the nickel story and the identification of nickel deposits on Andover. And because of that focus, they've been able to get a really strong understanding of all of the controls of the mineralisation and have been able to predict where to find mineralisation and then drill it and actually do confirm that that mineralisation is there. So this is typical old school boots on the ground exploration. Over 80% of our project area is outcropping rock. So it's basement rock that's sticking out of the ground. There's no soil cover and there's very little vegetation cover. So with all of this outcropping rock, you can go out on the ground and you do geological mapping. And that's what we do. Firstly, it's geological mapping and then rock chip sampling of prospective looking outcrops. And you can see there, for example, the top photograph, there's one of our young geologists sampling an outcropping pegmatite. Got a chunk of it here. This was one of the ones we announced yesterday, 3.3% lithium oxide, sent the share price running from 21 to 36 cents. These pegmatites are literally outcropping throughout the project area. The lower left-hand photograph there shows some of the copper mineralisation that's sticking out of the ground at surface. Very visible, it's bright green, bright blue. And then on the lower right side, you've got the nickel-rich gossans, which are representing the massive nickel sulfides at depth, which have been weathered and oxidised, and at surface they appear as these brown ironstones. All of these types of outcrops are sticking out of the ground in the Andover project. We're located only 5 kilometres south of the town of Roebourne. We've got a highway that runs through the project area. We've got roads, power lines, etc. No one has been out on the ground cracking these rocks. And there's been people prospecting in the Pilbara for 50 or 60 years. These zones of outcropping mineralisation stick out of the ground and they have never been identified previously. It's quite remarkable that we should still have these opportunities available to us here in Western Australia. So typically it's the mapping to identify geology, sampling to identify favourable geochemistry, follow it up with geophysical surveys, and then diamond drilling. And this is an aerial image, an aerial photograph of the project area. In blue are the 3 exploration licenses that form our project area, about 108 square kilometres. in there. You can see the sort of in the central part, the mountainous looking material, that's the outcropping rocks. And within that, we get the mineralization sticking out of the ground as well. Nickel prospects where we have either drilled or we're about to be drilling. Lower left-hand side, you've got Ridgeline and Andover. They're the two deposits which have been drilled to date. We have a resource announced for Andover. We have a resource coming for Ridgeline very quickly. And we're currently drilling or planning to drill the rest of those yellow stars over coming weeks and months. And sticking out of the ground in red is the pegmatites that we've been mapping and sampling over the last 12 months. And within those outcropping pegmatites, we're finding this lithium-rich mineralization. And it's visible at surface as our geologists have been able to identify the particular mineral spodumene that contains most of it. And there are some cross picks on there that you can see on the right-hand side of the image there. Those are old mines that were worked back in the 1950s and 1960s by small-scale artisanal miners, and they were chasing tin, tantalum, etc. And they were just throwing this lithium-rich material off to one side while they extracted the other minerals. So there actually is been a little bit of historical work on the far right-hand side, particularly for tin. And it's in those areas we're finding really good examples of the lithium-rich material. If we zoom in a little bit here, you can see faded out behind it is the purple and the green. Those are the mafic and ultramafic rocks that form the Andover complex that contains the nickel. And in red are those pegmatites that we've been sampling. And there on the screen, there are some of the assay grades that we've been getting from our lithium sampling. They're very high grades sticking out of the ground at surface. That exploration program is continuing, and we'll be drilling on the ground on those pegmatites as soon as we receive the appropriate approvals. So originally we went in there into Andover for the nickel potential, and the nickel and copper sulfide potential is huge. It is still very much our main focus. The lithium is good, it's interesting, and we will do work on that, but the nickel is the main game. And the first of the deposits we drilled out was Andover, a bit over 4.5 million tonnes of about 1.4% nickel equivalent, containing about 75,000 tonnes in total of combined metal tonnes. A very robust resource, over 80% is included in the indicated resource category. This ore body lends itself to an underground mining operation for all sorts of reasons, and we are processing this and doing the development studies to employ an underground mining method to extract this mineralisation. Right next door to it is one called Ridgeline. So on the right-hand side of the photograph, we've got Andover with the 50-odd thousand tonnes of contained nickel, 21,000 tonnes of copper, etc. 200 metres to the west, we have the Ridgeline deposit, which we've completed the resource drill out phase now, and it is now in the mineral resource estimation stage. The resource should be ready for publication sometime in the early to mid part of the first quarter of next year. It's only 200 metres from Andover, but it's blind at surface. This is the only example of nickel mineralisation we've identified and drilled to date, which does not stick out of the ground. We found it through doing geophysics, two very high-grade massive sulfide shoots, massive nickel and copper sulfides. And this is what some of the drill core looks like. This is much higher grade than what we're seeing next door at the Andover deposit. So this particular hole, 6.3 metres at 3.6% nickel. And we sampled this particular drill hole at half-metre intervals to get some idea of understand the variability of the nickel within there. And as you can see, in the top part of the hole we went into, it's 2.2%. And then we went into a whole series of samples running 3% up to nearly 5% nickel. So very consistent grades, high grades, and it's likely that when the resource comes out, this particular deposit will have a higher grade than what the next door neighbour at Andover does, only a couple of 100 metres away. So literally, we are only scratching the surface at Andover, over 100 square kilometres of land, and we've been really focused on a few areas which have got outcropping nickels, but now we are spreading our vision wider. So we're not only looking for outcropping and finding outcropping examples of nickel and copper, we're finding outcropping pegmatites hosting lithium as well. So there's a lot of work being undergone on the project area at the moment. And we see ourselves being here for a very long time, drilling out these resources, while at the same time undertaking the development studies to build a mine. So we see this as a project, as I said, with a dual pathway. We can actually carry out the exploration and resource definition drilling on those nickel projects, and then also into the lithium as well. while at the same time, we're undertaking all of this component studies that form firstly a scoping study, which is likely to be released in the first quarter of next year, and then through into a feasibility study, and then hopefully, if everything is positive, to actually building a mining and processing operation for nickel on the Andover project. So the project is coming along really nicely. The important part of developing projects these days is to have a proper environmental and social license to operate and governance procedures put in place. We are doing that. We are bringing in the local community so they understand that what we're doing. Our intention is to use absolute best practice in our exploration stage, the development stage, and into the mining stage as well. And we'll do everything we can to ensure that all the stakeholders, not only shareholders in the company, but also the local people and the local communities do benefit as well. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to produce nickel, which has that traceability from the mine site all the way through to the BMW buyer who has a battery in his car in Europe. That traceability is very important for your ESG credentials going forward. So that's the story of Andover dual pathway. We're successfully tracking along that as well. The company's in a very strong position. We're financially well off at the moment. We've got a really good team in place, and we see this as a project that really has the opportunity to go forward in leaps and bounds. The last 2 years has been fantastic. We see the next couple of years as being even better. And as was mentioned to me yesterday, if you happen to have a Tesla car and you drive it up to Andover and you throw a cable on the ground, you'll be able to charge your batteries up there with all the battery metals, the nickel, the copper, the cobalt, and the lithium that we have on our ground. So that's the story of Andover. It's in a position to really go forward. The company's very strong, great team in place, well funded, and a project that looks like it's going to go all the way through to mining. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. I'm sure the RSC will be in touch regarding their electric highway around Australia. It's great news. Congratulations. Right. Now, as I said before, we went to morning tea. Well, I wish these guys had presented yesterday. No, we would have all been outside, not worrying about Stewie buying us drinks tonight. We would have been out buying our own champagne. Well, who knows? I don't know. I'm speculating, and that's a bad thing to do. To this smiling fellow over here, we haven't seen him live in person for a while because he's been travelling all over the world. We took the borders down and he took off to check out Galan's resources. Come on up here, JP. We haven't seen you in the flesh for a while. JP is Galan Lithium's MD. Here in person to present. You've been Zooming us, haven't you, at recent conferences? Yeah. You were fairly limited in what you're allowed to talk about today. A lot you can talk about in coming weeks, as we know, but hashtag slightly frozen at the moment. So let's see, we've got him 15 minutes. Let's see what he's actually going to chat with us about. Would you please make him very welcome on behalf of Galan today?
Good afternoon, and thanks very much for being back here. And I have to first of all acknowledge it's the first time that I got my sister with me, so I just want to say thank you for being here, and also member teams of Galan and got part of the board as well. So thank you for being here and part of this journey. We are in a trading halt, and all what I can say is that we're going to do our resource update, which is significant. So that's all what I can say about the incoming news. And it's a resource update. What I can tell you is why we're doing it. Why are we updating our resource when we already have a resource of 2.3 million tons sitting in the ground at Ombre Muerto West? And the reason why is that we are in the middle of a definitive feasibility study. And for such, you need a measured resource that you can use that as a base for your reserve statement. So that's the conceptual way of doing things. And as common knowledge on Galan, we're doing a DFS, we're doing that with Hatch. We expect to have that by Q1 next year. There's been a few delays here and there. Delays do happen, and hopefully they are for also the right reasons. But what I can tell you about our developments and where we're at, and the picture that you can see there, it speaks 1,000 words. This was an idea 5 years ago in which we were trying to test, can we find lithium in a place that everybody knew there was already plenty of lithium. So we went to the salt flat of Hombre Muerto out of a hunch and an idea, and quit my job. I was with Canaccord at the time. Many of you, they kindly say hello to me. So thank you for not forgetting about where we all met. But today, what we can say is that the pilot plant is advancing. We're evaporating. We will like to think that we'll have concentrate by sometime this summer. Fingers crossed on the weather. But also we have a camp. We already have next to it a camp that can serve up to 45 beds, and we have another camp at Candelas, and all up is 70 people. A few weeks ago, we announced that we want a 200-man camp. And the reason being is that we want to be a producer. We want to be the next producer at the lithium triangle. And why is this? Why the rush? Well, let's think conceptually. And before I go into the presentation, conceptually, lithium is here to stay. And why is here to stay? If you think and are of the view that the electric vehicle is going to be running batteries in every single car, let's think of the universe of cars in the world. If you want to round it up for simple exercise, there could be around 100 million cars made every year, and every car will require approximately 60 kilos of lithium carbon equivalent. Then the whole 100% of the fleet in batteries, that's around 6 million tons of lithium carbon equivalent. The production figure for this year is 655,000. So where are we going to get 10 times that? And let's assume that we'll replace just 25% of that. So that's 1.5 million. Then when is that going to be? The current penetration rate is around 16% and growing every year. So despite recession, despite the boogeyman and everything that you hear on the market, lithium is there very strong. As a reflection of that is the lithium price. It's sitting around $80,000 a ton. So I'll leave you with that thought that the demand of lithium is not going away. Lithium here, it's going to be really strong. The dividends that lithium companies could pay in the future, once into production, they will be significant, will be something that you've never seen before. And these companies will keep growing, keep looking for lithium. But to get 10 times the production, then there's a lot of things that needs to happen. So we are on that race. We want to get to market. We want to be a producer as soon as possible. And therefore, the work that we're doing, and part of the work is to update the resource. So what I can tell you about Galan, you probably know about who we are and what we are. We tightly held 17%, it's owned by the management and the board. Top 20 is 54%. So we are also set, if we do well, to grow very quickly. So our cash position also is important because we have approximately $54 million in the last quarter. We are trying to be conservative with our cash and spend it wisely. So we're always thinking of what else we can do. I mentioned many times, this is for us, is a marathon, not a sprint. We're doing this in a conventional way, as you were seeing. The ponds, we're not using DLE because it's too much risk. We don't want to be the first one. And also, we're in the middle of nowhere. We have 4,000 meters. There's not plenty of water, not plenty of power. Therefore, we're using evaporation because the sun is free. So what is not good to like about that? And our water usage is minimal. So horses for courses. If we were in a part that's plenty of water and power, yeah, we may give it a go to DLE, even though no one today commercially is producing DLE. So we are on a significant path, and what we like to think is how can we penetrate the market as quick as possible? So these are all the things that we are, as a company, a board, thinking constantly about how to minimize time to do things in a very simple way. So why Galan? And there's no better salt flat in Argentina than Hombre Muerto. So why? You can see the proof is in the pudding. We have POSCO, Livent, and Allchem. So those are big companies that are sitting in the same salt flat. We always say that we're an elephant country and we are baby elephant, but we're still part of the same family. And why I say the same family is because the matrix of impurities of Hombre Muerto, it reflects in the same way that we have. We have low impurities and high grade. We have done preliminary studies that are showing things are ticking the boxes at $18,500 a ton. Mention where the price is, it could go to 100,000. You can do the math. We're doing this in a responsible way with a low carbon footprint because we are using the sun to advantage. So there's no CO2 burning from fossil fuels, and everything that we try to do, we're trying to do with solar panels as well. And we try to minimize our impact in every way possible. So this is a project that will be reflecting those numbers once we finish the study. We are moving as fast as we can. Yes, there are delays, but we're still on track. We're still on focus to deliver what we said that we'll do. And now the team. So if Galan, in a nutshell, there are three things that are very strong, and that could be identified as a company in lithium. We have a fantastic project with high-grade, low impurities. That's hard to replicate. Second is that we have the cash to develop this in the studies phase, and maybe some cash for doing early works. And lastly, the team. Today, it is a rat race to produce, so we're not the only one, but we have a very good team, all the way from the board to management to all the ranks. And I make a joke constantly that our ticket is GLN. It should be changed to XQM. The reason why I say this is because we have so many ex-SQM people in our team that, you know, we should change the ticket because it's very interesting, the quality of the people that we got into work for us, and people makes a difference. People execute, people makes the projects happen. So we're not just a West Perth-based company that never seen lithium or doesn't know what to do. We've done this, the team has done it. So this is why our approach is very simple. And in terms of a strategy, I'll get more into it, but we want to walk before we run. We are a mining company must produce the lithium. We like to concentrate and not become a chemical company that does lithium carbonate. And I'll get into in a minute into that. And also, do not forget, we have Candelas. Candelas can also increase our production profile in the future. And fingers crossed, we do have the Greenbushes project that is slower than expected, but we are advancing as fast as we can. And there are some indication that could be some smoke, so keep an eye on this. So conceptually, this is where we are. We are in the lithium sulfate. The other half of the lithium comes from that part of the world mainly. The first half comes from Australia, as you're all familiar with Australian companies. So this is the image, satellite image. So what is to like about this is all the red dots that you see on the west, those are drill holes. So, and the spacing is very tight. And as mentioned, we want to convert our indicated resource to measured base of the maiden reserve statement that we're going to come up once we finish our study. And so you can see where we're sitting. And the key thing of this is that even though it doesn't look that big and large in our footprint, I would like you to challenge you to think on 3Ds. The deep holes that we shown, the deepest one is 720 meters. So when you have a system with sands and deep, you know, it's not the surface expression. You have to tilt it, and you have to see geometrically what you have. So this is what makes Galan high grade, low impurities associated with the same system of Ombra Muerto, and we can have the same sort of qualities that we see, and a decent tonnage. So this picture, it tells you where Galan is sitting. So on the left axis, you got the ratio of lithium to magnesium, and then on the right axis, you got grade. Ombra Muerto is sitting on the far right of the chart. So grade is king. It gives us a possibility to change things around. It gives us possibilities to concentrate our brine into technical high grade that can be up to 33% lithium carbonate equivalent. So with that in mind, let's think about the things that we can do. We can place something that we don't have to qualify. We can use the same things and apply the same principles that the Australian miners are doing. Look at Pilbara Mineral, look how successful they've been. So we can replicate in a similar way something that is 6% lithium metal content that equates to 14% lithium oxide if you are familiar with spodumene. So there's no spodumene produced today with 14% content. So this is something that we have to advantage. We're pushing for it. We want to get quick to market. The economics of Ombra Muerto West, you can, all of this is online, so I'm just going to skip through it. But what I want to tell you is this is a very strong project. We have $18,500, an NPV of $2 billion. What we've done at Ombra Muerto West, as explained, we have the ponds. We do have advanced. We're going to be updating the market as we are progressing, and we're ticking the boxes on our predicted model to get to that 6% lithium concentrate in metal. Same goes with Candelas. Candelas, not to dismiss, still got high grade, same grade as Orocobre at Olaroz. So if you're all familiar with that, we got even better grade than them. And we still got a very strong economic project. So where it does sit both projects on the production curve, right in the middle for Candelas and right on the left side for Ombra Marta West. So the combined production of these two projects in the long term is up to 34,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So if the price gets to be, well, $80,000, you do the math, there's a lot of money to be made. And this is what we want to do. We want to do this step by step. We don't want to overpromise, but we do want to get there. We want to do this in the safest possible manner because it's too good to miss. We do have, we're having Circular doing the ESG study. So once we finalize our definitive feasibility study, we'll have the numbers of our CO2 emissions and the traceability of our product. So things that we've done, we are in the, well, we are a bit late for what we said on the resource update, but we finally got there. And the next thing is update, next thing is the DFS, the next thing is permits, and permits, I would like to think that we are, by mid next year, we should have them. And with that, we'd like to come to start producing. So if we fast forward a year, I would like to say that we're in the construction phase. So this is a big milestone. The company is going to be completely changed to where it's sitting today. So we've been quiet a bit because we are trying to do things right. But we are now at a big inflection point to say where we are. A bit of the board, you've seen a few of the guys. I would like to highlight that Daniel Jimenez is our star in our board. He was the senior VP of commercial of SQM. Without him, we couldn't have an XQM team. So we do have people that have been there, done it, 28 years at SQM. SQM today is still the biggest and the largest producer of lithium brines in the world, and that's in Chile. Our team in Catamarca, our team in Chile, our team, it's very united, and we have done a lot in our progress, and the proof isn't what you're seeing on the pictures. We are getting there. And lastly, I would like to show you where we are at the Greenbushes South. This is something that please keep an eye. We're moving slowly, but surely we'll be able to drill at some stage, and this could be the cherry on the cake for Galan. So with that, I will like to close my presentation, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Hey, JP, for a bloke that's frozen, you talked a lot. I didn't think I was going to get to that 2-minute bell, but I did. So there you go. You have to go and have a cheeky chat with him this evening, everyone. Now, around this time last year, our next explorer was flush with $10 million cash from an IPO. What have they done with it? Apparently a lot, and this is the fellow that's going to tell us about it. Hamlin Gold is next on stage at Southwest Connect, and to paint a picture of this last 12 months and Hamlin's future prospects. This is a long-term geologist, 30 years in the business, and now MD of Hamlin. Would you please make welcome Peter Bewick?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Hamlin Gold presentation. So as Chrissy said, next month we celebrate our first birthday. There'll be no fairy bread, but there will be a great celebration of a fantastic first year. We're exploring our large belt scale gold opportunity in the far northeast of Western Australia in the Tanami Goldfield. We've got built ourselves a great exploration team. We've well cashed up, as Chrissy mentioned. And what I wanted to do today is basically share with you a bit of our exploration strategy and some of the early exceptional results we've been seeing from that program. The board, myself, geologist with 30 years experience, joined with Justin Osborne, another geologist, and along with Clayton Davies, an experienced exploration manager. We have about 85 years of industry experience, which makes me feel very old all of a sudden, right from project generation through to mine development and production. Joining us on the board, Philip Crutchfield is a King's Counsel based in Melbourne with extensive corporate law experience, and Will Robinson, the ex-president of AMEC, and a commercial background. So a really well-balanced board. We have a very simple capital structure as of the June quarterly, 7.1 in the bank. Importantly, our shareholder base is very tight. Top 20 hold near on 60% of the stock, and that includes two key investors, Goldfields and Silver Lake, both taking 10% interest in the IPO. So where we're located, a bit of an introduction slide. We are right on the Northern Territory WA border. Our lease holdings are all in Western Australia. On the Northern Territory side, and a lot of you may not know much about the Tanami Goldfield. It's kind of a bit of a hidden gem, but I want to tell you a little bit more about this area and why we think the prize is so significant. So there's some big boys in the room up there. Newmont in blue there, and the sort of mustardy yellowy colour, Northern Star in joint venture with Tanami Gold. On the West Australian side, made up of pretty newcomers, including us, PVW and Killy to our north, and the most recent company to join us up there is Black Cat Syndicate, who purchased the Coyote gold mine from Northern Star just earlier this year. So the area on the west side of the border, generally, yeah, newcomers. We've all been very busy this year. I was up there only a few months ago and there were 5 rigs in the field drilling away for those 4 companies. Probably the most active exploration this area has ever seen since gold was first discovered in the early 1980s. There's a real boom going on there. We're actually all benefiting from each other, working side by side, and we'll see some really interesting results come out of this district, both for gold and rare earths up there in the north of WA. Using that same footprint and looking at the geology of the area, state borders don't change geology. The Tanami Goldfield extends from over about 300 kilometres of strike from the bottom right there to the top left. We hold about 100 strike kilometres of that corridor. And the important point here is geology is the same, key structures are the same, the geological setting of the deposits is very much the same. What you see though in the Northern Territory, over 25 million ounces of endowment. On the West Australian side, less than 1 million. And that's really comes down to a lack of exploration immaturity. And that's what we see as a great opportunity up here. Previously, the Tanami would be known as probably still is by some, as a difficult, remote, hard place to operate. We're talking about desert sands. We don't have the outcrop Tony has to deal with, which is kind of a blessing for us. We believe that's where you could hide a significant gold system. And some of the results I'll show you today will point towards that. But it's, as I mentioned, it's starting to get some real focus. So we expect to see the pendulum of ounces add to the left-hand side over the next few years. But I want to spend a bit of time talking about Newmont's. I've obviously pressed that just a few many times. Some of you might not know much about the Calais operation. So held by Newmont, the world's largest gold mining company. This is the lowest cost gold production in their entire portfolio across the globe. It's an absolute cracking deposit. Hasn't always had the greatest of lives, but more recently, the last 10 years, this deposit just goes from strength to strength. They're producing 500,000 ounces per annum. They're going up to 700,000. They've got production going out to 2040. And that's because they sort of begun to understand over the last 10 years the magnitude of this deposit and how to explore and find more gold. But from an explorer point of view, when we come to a new area, we don't want to relearn the mistakes of the past. And we certainly want to learn the things that have been positive and got them into these discoveries. So just 2 very simple diagrams up in the top right there. What we're showing there is just what would happen if you drilled shallow geochem exploration holes over a world-class deposit. And what you can see there, very poorly, I'll give you that, is basically a 2-kilometre long 0.1 gram per tonne maximum gold in hole anomaly. And this is quite subtle. It's not a significant anomaly. And in fact, only 1 hole of the early vacuum drilling went above 1 gram per tonne. So this is shallow drilling gets you into the ballpark. It doesn't find you the high-grade gold shoot. What we also see on the bottom slide there is a cartoon of a plan view of the high-grade gold shoots at Calais. And what it is there is basically a simple intersection of the folded stratigraphy and the key mineralizing structures. And that intersection produces a series of shoot-like plunging parallel gold shoots. The story here is once you get onto one, and I think Calais was produced for many years following the one ore body, working out and understanding that and exploring laterally found multiple parallel gold lodes. And that's been the real change from a single shoot type deposit into the behemoth it is now. So we want to learn about, on our ground with where we are exploring it currently, we have essentially drilling very similar to that top page, broad, shallow drilling, and seeing the sort of anomalies that these guys had right in the early days. What am I pressing now? Back button, right. Okay, so to learn a bit about the regolith, we went to the Coyote pit and looked over the side of it. Thanks very much, Gareth, for the look over the wall. And what we see there is a typical profile of the sort of near surface geology we're seeing in the Tanami district. We have a very clear layer of cover, very little gold. This is desert sands and basically benign material. You get some gold dispersion in this area, but not a lot. Below that, there's a very distinct leached zone. And the leached zone is named uniquely because metals are leached out of that area. And you see that broad low-grade plume, but it's very, very hard. You don't get any enrichment and you don't see a great deal of gold dispersion, but you get into that sort of ballpark. Occasionally, you get a high-grade lode that will poke through that leach zone. And I'll talk a bit about that later on. But all our exploration, or 70% of the holes we've inherited, are less than 10 meters deep. So most of them sit in that leach zone and just poking through cover. So all we'd expect to see is broad low-grade anomalism at this point in time. And when you look at our lease holding, now just to give you back into scale here, top left to bottom right is 100 kilometres of strike. So this is a huge land holding, 2,500 square k's. But that same threshold, colour coding all the holes in the near surface by 0.1 gram per tonne or above, we outline a series of multi-kilometre long gold anomalies. The Fremlin's anomaly just in the far east there is 6 kilometres long. The one in the middle, Hutch's Find, 2.5 kilometres. There's a bit of a scale. So these are the sort of early stage, large scale plumes that you'd see if you're exploring for this district for these orogenic sediment hosted gold deposits. So in our first year, our idea was to get drilling across as many of these as we could. Most of it was focused on trying to do deep diamond drilling to understand the structural and geological architecture. What we did is, and also one of the other programs we looked at is to try and understand the regolith by doing a series of sections of shallow RC drilling. I can only talk about 2 because I've only got assays back for 2. The ASX doesn't like talking about things I think that's in there. So the two projects we're going to talk about today is Hutch's and Camel. These are sort of end members of the 2 types of projects we've got. One we focused on the regolith and one we focused on deep diamond drilling. So the Camel project this is a magnetic image over about a 2.5 K area. It's a 2 kilometre long gold anomaly at surface in that low level footprint. We did one single line of drilling, 2 diamond holes and a few RC holes. What we focused on here is trying to understand the orientation of these key mineralized structures. Hole 5, which is the second one from the bottom there, was very successful at that. We intersected a suite of high-grade quartz vein dolerite-hosted gold lodes, gold structures. And from that was very important being orientated. We outlined and identified a northwest corridor from that drilling. Our holes sort of look like they're sitting on the side of that or the edge of that sort of system. And we projected or put an idea of a corridor of high-grade or potential for high-grade mineralization. When we went out there on the ground, when we did the drilling, we realized that this isn't all covered. There is actually rock sticking out of the ground by about a centimetre. What we see out here is a lot of sand, but these quartz veins seem to sit right at surface. And if you walk over them, you might be lucky in seeing a few. What we did is got a drone in the air, did a detailed drone photography and mapped out many hundreds of these veins, sampled a number of them, about 75 or so. And interestingly, the ones with grade in it sat within a yellow box. It confirmed that original interpretation of a northwest corridor. We're seeing surface samples here going up to 23 grams per tonne off the deck. Strangely, again, no one's ever done this sampling before, which is kind of weird. So we're very excited about this little area. We think that we've got that 2K area down to maybe a 600 metre area, and we're planning follow-up drilling here in the very short term. So quite excited about that. The second project I'm going to talk about, which is hot off the press from results last week, is a Hutch's Find. Now, this is a bit of a story of interest. I'll see if I can get the pointer to work. So we did one line of drilling right across a small area of the project, again, about a 2.5 K long project. That map looks like it's drilled to death. It looks like those little dots are basically drill holes, and they're color-coded by the maximum gold in hole. And what you see is 3 sort of semi-northwest trending corridors. A lot of those holes are 5-10 meters deep, so very shallow, but it has outlined areas of gold mineralization, and a couple of these have been followed up with deeper drilling. So what we did is we did a test to say, well, let's try and see if we can take surface samples to try and see the gold under this shallow sand cover. So we picked an area. They are also geochem sample locations, but we also then followed up with RC drilling to try and see where the gold was dispersing in those layers that we looked at in the photograph of the open pit. So we started from background. We thought there was no gold in the west, and we'd go across the anomaly, we'd see a peak in the gold, and then we'd see back into background. Well, Mother Nature didn't read the script on this little story. And we intersected 12 meters at 4.5 grams from 6 meters below surface in an area where the shallow drilling had failed to see any great significant amount of anomalism. So 2 things we learned from this. The post-hole shallow drilling is largely ineffective at finding high-grade gold systems. And also we can find very mineable, very high-grade material within very shallow depths from surface. So this is an outstanding result from us. And it really opens up, just on even this page, a huge area where we might be able to identify previously unknown high-grade mineralization. So with our soil geochemical orientations, and we're using a number of methodologies to try and see through the sand, including the CSIRO developed fine fraction soils. We're also looking at multiple fraction soils, but if we can possibly see through the sand and see these high-grade veins, we'll be able to accelerate from discovery to potentially ounces very quickly. And just to show that section, these are 100-meter spaced holes, so we really were pretty broad in our drilling. This vein is open, obviously down dip and along strike. Drilling starts again. So we got these results issued them on Monday last week. Planning this week, we're drilling again next week. So we've managed to get a rig, managed to get a loader, managed to get the TOs organised, and we'll be out here drilling next week. So we're super excited by this. We could turn this with basically 2 days of drilling. We could have another section and drilling down dip of this. And if we can get a few pierce points onto it, we might be under the top of a gold system. Already, as you can see, to the east, 200 meters away, another 10 at 5 sitting there from previous drillers, previous explorers. Gets the idea that we're starting to build up maybe a high-grade gold system here. So lots of results coming out from our previous diamond drilling over the next 6 months. This will be the catalyst and the springboard for our second year program. But first year, we've been extremely excited, and we can't wait for what second year brings. We believe we've got all the hallmarks of a successful junior explorer. We're well supported on the market. We're well supported with a great management and a board team. We've got the money in the bank, and we're very, very keen to get on the ground and continue our exploration efforts. And if we can continue to get the sort of results we've seen more recently, I think we'll be a very different beast very quickly. So if you'd like to know more about Hamlin Gold, please feel free to come out to the outside tent and catch up with us, or follow us online. I will finish with a little anecdote because I like stories. But our front page of our annual report is graced by my son, who I've decided breeding your own field team is better than actually trying to get them on the market. So I took this young fella out in the bush when he was 10 years old, and now 15 years later, he's going to do his honours next year on our project. And yeah, it's really great to share the experience with him. So all the best, and thanks very much for listening to Hamlin Gold.
I like that. That's very cunning. That's one way of getting them out of the house permanently. That's a very good idea. Very great presentation, Pete. Thanks very much. Well, interesting. Wade Johnston, he's quick on the draw. He's joined us up here on stage. He's also a geologist. He's only got 25 years experience. Goodness me.
Yes.
Okay, 25 years. Mineral exploration and project management are his forte, with a focus on gold here in Western Australia. He's the managing director at Lefroy Exploration, and he and his team are focusing on the Burns copper gold or gold copper discovery near Kalgoorlie, which look, it's a bit of a unique mineral system, so I'm going to let him tell us more. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone? Wade Johnston from Lefroy.
Thank you, Christy, and the Vertical Events, and thank you for the audience to listening to the presentation I've got to show on this exciting new discovery we've made near Kalgoorlie, which is Burns, which is a copper gold system in an interesting suite of rocks, and so close to Kalgoorlie, which is renowned for gold. So it's a really interesting discovery. So really what I want to go through is in the presentation is talking about the background to Lefroy, and then going on to talking about particularly focusing on the Burns and what this new discovery means to the Kalgoorlie area. So just a quick disclaimer, that's on our website, the presentation is on the website, and also on the ASX if you wish to read it. So that's all there. That's the usual disclaimer. I guess about Lefroy. Peter was talking about birthdays. It's only a couple of days ago, it was Lefroy's 6th birthday. So we formed the company back in 2016. And our major project, as you can see there on the screen there, is 3 key projects we've got. The biggest focus, and that's what the name of the company is the Lefroy Gold Project near Kalgoorlie. But I guess the opportunity for Lefroy, I guess we've been targeting and focusing generative exploration searching for gold mineralisation, particularly on that Lefroy Gold project near Kalgoorlie for the last 6 years. And I guess the key thing is we've come across this new style of gold, copper, plus silver mineralisation, which we think is a unique new discovery in Western Australia and perhaps Australia. So it's, and that's what I want to talk about through this, this presentation. And I guess the other key thing is it's a highly experienced board, strong board ownership in the company. And I guess our focus is the gold, the copper, and also we've got nickel in the portfolio. The other two key assets within the portfolio are called Glen Isle and Lake Johnston. Glen Isle is about 220 kilometres to the northeast of Kalgoorlie, and that's our focus. We've recently pegged all those grounds, about 3,000 square kilometres of tenure we wholly own. That's a nickel perspective for nickel mineralisation. And also Lake Johnston, that's another target we've got down there near the Emily and Mackey Hayes nickel deposits, perspective for nickel mineralisation. I guess going on to the corporate snapshot, what the background of the company, I guess we've only got a pretty tight shareholding. We've only got 146 million shares on issue. Top 20 shareholders, a lot of companies were talking about that. The top 20 for Lefroy is 71% ownership. And really out of that, the board ownership is totaling about 20% of the company. It's really three key entities ownership in Lefroy is Goldfields. Goldfields own 14.8% of the company, and they came into Lefroy back in July 2018. They've also got a joint venture with us, so I can talk about that later. Noontide Investments out of Sydney, and also they are the LEX board, which is made up of the LEX board as holders and also the LEX share plan. I guess cash at the end of the quarter is the 4.2 million. That's the end of the June quarter. And obviously we've still got to put out a September quarter on the cash flow. I guess we've got a very experienced, well-credentialed board. I joined the company back in 2016. Gordon Galt and Mike Davies. Gordon Galt's a mining engineer. Gordon and Mike also principals of Taurus Funds Management out of Sydney. Gordon's a mining engineer. Mike's in mining finance. I'm a geologist. And also welcome to Tara French, who joined the company in July this year. So recently appointed as a non-executive director. So a strong background in exploration, mining development and mining engineering. Just leading on, this really goes into the Lefroy project and a fantastic part of the world to be exploring. We formed this portfolio of land, 100% owned back in 2015. We formed the company and raised $4 million, and we've been doing our exploration there ever since. But really, it's a fantastic area to explore. It's the first time a company's put all this portfolio of land together, and we think, our geologists think, we all think that this is a forgotten part of the Kalgoorlie district for exploration. And I guess we've been doing the exploration there, and this is where we've uncovered the Burns discovery last year. We divided into two projects, two distinct projects. Western Lefroy is the joint venture with Goldfields. That's a $25 million farm-in. That was formed in June 2018. Goldfields have earned their first stage of the earning, which is $10 million in 3 years. That's done. They're in the second stage of the earning. That's a $15 million earning, and all that expenditure has to be done by June 24. There's a big air core drilling program underway. That's on the land. So what's called a full field air core drilling program. So that's underway. For Lefroy, that's where we spend our money and devote our attention to. And we've got 32 kilometres of strike along a major regional structure called the Mount Munga Fault. And that's where you can see where Burns is, the area in red. That's the area we focus our exploration attention, and where we've made this new discovery of Burns. And this is where we're doing the drilling, big resource drilling program that's underway at the moment. I guess, yeah, this is going into the Burns, and this is really what I talk about because we feel this is an exciting new discovery in Western Australia, particularly, I think, for the Kalgoorlie area too. Going for gold and nickel, we're now finding the copper in the system. And the system we've found, we think it's a unique system for the age of the rocks and in Western Australia, and we think for the world. It's something completely different that we've found, and it seems to be getting bigger the more and more drilling we do. So really, I just want to go back. I'm excited. I love these images, but and it's just a bit of background to Burns and why the discovery. How did we make this discovery? Where did it come from? This is an aeromagnetic image, a TMI. I guess basically blue colours, the light colours are non-magnetic rocks, the warm colours, magnetic rocks. The key feature you see there is this big donut anomaly. The round anomaly in there is a big Burns intrusion. Outboard of Burns, you can see where the Burns and Lovejoy trend is. There's some drilling there, those coloured dots. That's where the Burns discovery is. But BHP recognised this anomaly back in 1985, and that was from the old contour, BMR, what's called BMR contour images, not these fancy images. They drilled a couple of holes, they walked away. Newmont came back in 2008, 2010, drilled a few air core holes, but they didn't actually make the discovery at Burns. A company called Octagonal Resources came in about 2011, 2016. They drilled air core holes, and they actually made, sort of credit to them, they made the discovery. They drilled one big deep diamond hole and they got called Obard 1. They intersected 55 meters at 0.5 gram gold, 0.2% copper. Didn't get the market excited, and eventually in 2019, Octagonal Resources dropped the ground. And we fortunately were there to pounce on the ground, and we picked up that ground 100% and won the ground in a ballot at the mines department. So we got straight onto the ground, did the drilling, recognised the anomaly, followed up for the work that Octagonal did. We drilled there in January 2021. It's only over a year ago. The second hole in the program, that intersected 38 meters at 7.63 grams per tonne gold and 0.56% copper, plus silver, plus molybdenum in a porphyry host rock, something completely different we'd never seen before. And we thought this is something completely different in the Eastern Goldfields. So since then, we've been doing more and more exploration. So where we are now with the system, I guess we've been doing drilling, RC drilling, diamond drilling, air core drilling, particularly air core drilling out the lake. This is on the edge of a big salt lake called Lake Randall. And we've been doing RC drilling and diamond drilling. So particularly the dashed line there is called the baseline section. So on that section there, we did a series of diamond holes. And more recently, we've done this big EIS co-funded diamond hole. That's 1.2 kilometres deep. And then we've done more and more drilling through here. We've found this new style of copper gold Archean age system. And we've also done a hole further to the south. So the system, as we do more drilling, the system gets bigger. So what does it look like? I guess it looks a bit complicated. There's a lot of pink there. That's pink is the porphyry. So there's not just one porphyry. And please come out to our table out in the marquee and have a look at the porphyry style mineralization we're finding there. But these are multiple porphyry into this system. It's about 600 meters wide. The blue line is the 1.2 kilometer hole that we're waiting a lot of assays on. We have got some assays back for that, and we've also found cobalt in the system. So we've found a large multi-phase, multi-stage polymetallic system that we believe is an Archean porphyry system in Western Australia. There's some of the nice rocks we've been finding. So the top one there is a porphyry with the chalcopyrite in it. The bottom two there is what we get. This one thing we see a lot of in this system is native copper. We see a lot of native copper, and that'll come onto the next slide. It's an extraordinary intersection of copper we had, and we announced at another prospect further to north called Lovejoy. So this is Lovejoy. So this is 1.5 kilometres to the north of Burns, and we found even more copper. So we get the same rocks, the porphyries and the basalts, which are the green. But up here, we found this hydrothermal breccia, and within that hydrothermal breccia, we've found a lot of native copper, and we've got examples of that out in our table. And we're fast tracking, so we're waiting for results for this. These two diamond holes we've drilled through there, but that's what we got in these holes. It was just extraordinary what we found. The top slide there shows that's copper replacing the basalts. These class of basalt completely replaced by native copper. This is over 200 meters down in fresh rock. Second slide there is these nuggets of copper we regularly get in the basalt. We actually sieve native copper like gold, nuggets of gold in the sieves. We actually get native copper. And that bottom slide there, which is extraordinary, that's the drill rod. So when they were changing the drill bit, they pull the drill rods out, the whole drill rod was covered in native copper, which is extraordinary. It was something completely no one's ever seen around the world. So there's a lot of copper in the system, and this is 1.5 kilometres to the north of Burns, where we're currently drilling. So this is another aeromagnetic image, but what I wanted to really show here is the extent of the system. Burns is where we're drilling at the moment, with RC drilling. Burns is the original discovery anomaly, but there's all these magnetic anomalies we call along the Burns corridor that extend about 2.5 kilometres, over 2.5 kilometres of strike. So each one of these, you can see all these trends. That's the Burns corridor through here. Each one of those warm colours, which we call Lovejoy, Skinner, Flanders, Smithers, etc. Each of these represent magnetite alteration within a suite of porphyries where we do get, from initial drilling we've been doing, copper and gold and others. So it's not just Burns, it's part of a much larger system. That's, I guess, the perspective of where we're drilling and what we've been seeing. And as Peter points out, he gets some rocks, but out here we get no rocks whatsoever. We're drilling we have to drill to find the rocks and to find this system. That's where Burns is on the edge of the Lake Randall. And that's looking out to the east, where Lefroy probably owns most of that ground through there and where we're doing our exploration. So that's our challenge, to look under the Salt Lake, Lake Randall, and on the land-based exploration, which I call onshore exploration, where we're trying to find this major system. So the work we're doing now, so we're doing a large RC drill program at the moment. And what we aim to deliver, we're doing RC drilling about plus 100 holes, probably about at least 15,000 meters. What we are targeting is a shallow open pit resource at Burns. And we aim to deliver that resource estimate in the first quarter of calendar year 23. That area, which has got the blue outline, that is where we're concentrating on. So it's not the entire Burns we're delivering a resource on, we're just delivering a resource on the shallow part of the system, up to about 200 meters to the surface. This drilling is what we call, on the left-hand side of the screen, that's a plan view of the system. All the blue dots represent the holes we're drilling. This is onshore drilling and offshore drilling. So we've got a drill rig underway now on the onshore drilling, and we're about to get another rig that will start on the lake, which we call offshore drilling. There's a big program and a large lake-based RC rig that we'll be drilling on the lake as well. So moving along, Burns it's a fantastic new system we've found in the Eastern Goldfields. It's porphyry related, an alkalic porphyry. We see a zoned alteration system, much like we've seen in porphyry systems around the world, modern analogues like the Andes, North Parks, and in British Columbia. So this is what we're looking at. This could be a new style mineralization found in the Eastern Goldfields. Activities news flow over the next 6 months. That's the big item. We're waiting on the results from the diamond drilling from Burns. There's 4 holes. We're waiting all the copper and the gold results. We've got a big RC drilling program underway, and that'll keep going into Q1 of next year. And that's where, upon that, we'll deliver the resource estimate. At Western Lefroy, goldfields are underway with a big air core drilling program. And I guess the other key thing we're doing is, because we're really focused on this Burns prospect, we're going to be spinning out our nickel assets. And that moves on to this slide, where we've formed a company called Johnston Lakes Nickel Limited. We've put the nickel assets of the company, Glen Isle Lake Johnston, into that, and we are going to spin that out in the first half of next year. Really, the key takeaways for the company: strong commitment to greenfields exploration. So that's what we do. We go out and look under the lakes to try and find big discoveries. And that's what we think we found at Burns. We're underpinned by the big $25 million farm-in with goldfields at Western Lefroy, and obviously a tight capital structure leveraged to share price success. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wade. Well timed. Right. Canada is positioned to capitalise on an abundance of lithium deposits and emerge as a key producer of battery metals to global markets. That's according to Canaccord, a statement they've made in the last couple of weeks. So with that in mind, aptly wearing his green shirt, Green Technology is taking to the stage here at Southwest Connect. Now, they are a Canadian-focused lithium exploration and development business. They're currently accelerating exploration of their high-grade hard rock spodumene, I love saying that, assets, which are located in Ontario in Canada. And this fellow here is the company's CEO. His name is Luke Cox, and he's here today to provide us with all the latest from Green Technology. Would you please make him welcome?
All right, thank you. Yeah, so it's been a busy year. So it's actually 12 months since we listed. So yeah, as I say, anyone in the lithium game, it's been a wild journey, and which I'll talk about in the presentation. So where have we got to? You know, we're talking about building a vertically integrated lithium business in Canada, Ontario. But how do you do that? That's a massive order. So I'm going to take you through the process of how we're going to do that. So we're defining the resources. So we've got several assets up there in Canada. It's not as if we're grassroots exploration. These are all pegmatites. They're all bearing spodumene, and we're building those resources. We've got the drill rigs up there now. We're going to partner. So with the partners, we're not really looking for an offtake as such. We're looking for people that are going to join us, because going into a lithium hydroxide, that's a big ticket item. Right, and there's a lot of capex involved, so there's got to be businesses that are going to come with us and get involved in that project, but they've got to have the experience as well. So we'll start talking about partners. and unlocking the value chain. You know, we could produce a spodumene concentrate and send it out to the market, but the real value is taking that down to a hydroxide. So where's the company sit? Now we're sitting around that 200 mil on the market cap. Now 80 cents on the share price. Bottom left, share registry. So the 66%, that's really with the major funds. You know, they've gone long on us, which is great. So you don't really see the big movements in the share price. And on the right-hand side, you know, we've got major partners now. So Primero, so they build lithium processing plants all around the world. AMCI, they take projects from exploration all the way into production. And then Lithium Americas Corp, one of the biggest lithium companies in the world, which we'll talk about shortly. And then just up there on the top right, sorry, top left for you, where the projects are. So Ontario. So they all sit around a hub, and that hub is Thunder Bay. So if you imagine you're flying to Thunder Bay, it's a big airport, there's hotels, McDonald's, universities, 200,000 people, there's a workforce, and that's where we've got our hub right now. We've got offices there. It's just really me in Australia now as the CEO, but the whole operation team sits in Thunder Bay and the operations on site. We always need a good team. So right there on the chair, John Young. So he co-founded Pilbara Minerals. So really he's got that exploration to mine development experience, and it's really great having John on board. We've got a really good repertoire going there. Cameron Henry, founder of Primero. They build lithium processing plants. So right there, we've already got the processing side in-house. Pat Murphy, MD of AMCI, as I say, deep pockets, and they're looking to fund us into production. And then Rob Longley. Yeah, I've worked with Rob for years now, a highly experienced geologist, so it's great having Rob on board as well. Myself, I started life as a geo, you know, kicking rocks in WA, worked my way up the ranks, became a mine manager in the end on various lithium projects and gold projects. Matt Herbert, he's over there in Thunder Bay. He's running the whole operations, you know, ex-Rio, FMG. So he understands what it takes to get this thing into operation. Right, so there we go. Now, how are we going to do this? We need a resource base. So we're already at 10 million tonnes. We've got numerous rigs on numerous sites. We're building that resource base pretty quickly. We've got 41,000 hectares of grounds. There was a bit of a land grab up there because when we arrived in December, there was whole swathes of greenstone belts available. If that was WA, nothing would have been available. So we went in, did our due diligence, and we picked up all the prime lithium real estate. So quick snapshot about Primero, you know, having that team. So this is an in-house team which will build our lithium processing capabilities. So they've already done the designs for the concentrator and the converter. We speak with them on a daily basis. They're in-house now, and they own 6.5% of the business. Lithium Americas Corp, you know, they got one of the biggest deposits in America. They hold 5.2%, and we've got a collaboration agreement with them. So what that means, we're going to spread our wings across America, start looking at other assets, but that's for the long-term supply chain. What we're doing, we're developing our own assets to bring in the near term, so that's the 10 to 15 year mark, and then anything after that is what we're pushing through. AMCI, once again, 10% of the business. So yeah, they're a major backer. So as I say, anniversary 12 months, like we've been going like a rocket. So we listed in November, we raised 24 mil. I sent a whole team over to Canada. We went straight up there and started drilling. We got the permits in place within a couple of weeks. That's unheard of. We started hitting the resource, hit 40 meters of high grade, which was absolutely great. And the share price went for a run. We expanded the team there. So now we've got offices in Thunder Bay. We then started construction of a 30-man camp at our flagship. We kicked off all the baseline permits. We knew this is going to be a mine, so we started the baselining early and all the permitting. We then, as I say, we expanded our land holding. So we went from 10,000 hectares to 40,000 hectares, and that was working with a geological survey over there. We've kicked off the scoping study with Primero and our downstream partners. Because we liked what we saw in the market and what we were drilling, we quickly went to 80% ownership. On the back of that, I was on a bit of a trip with the family in Sydney, and then the board got wind of it and they said, right, you need to do a roadshow. So it didn't really turn into much of a holiday. Did a roadshow and we raised 55 million. You know, the lithium market's hot at the moment. So with the 55 million, we picked up the cornerstone investor, which is Lithium Americas Corp. We continued drilling. We sent all of our samples off for met test work. So they're in the lab now. So that'll go to a concentrate and into hydroxide. Previously, the previous owner, Arden, they've already done the test work. They've already taken an SC6 concentrate and converted that to a carbonate. So we're just repeating the work, but we're going to do it through GT1. We doubled the resource at Seymour. So we went from 4.8 to 10 million tonnes. We just kicked off drilling at our second major project, which is Root. So we've also built an all-weather camp. Now, the reason for that is what you do, you get the drill rigs up there, you build a camp. It's like a space center. So it just means they can drill all year round. So we won't stop. So we've got 2 rigs at Seymour, 2 rigs at Root. And they're pumping out the meters and we're already hitting the pegmatites. So what's coming up? You know, all the exploration results, like everyone, there's a bit of a backlog with assays, but the exploration results will be coming out for Seymour and Root. We've actually just lodged our project description. So in West Australian terms, that's us applying for our mining permit. So what we did, we knew this was going to be a mine. So we built a team in Canada. We pulled together all of the people that have taken the last 8 mines into operation in Ontario. We formed a team and they're doing the permits right now. We'll be delivering more resource updates for Seymour and a maiden resource for Root. And then the lithium, well, then the scoping study will come out early in the year. And obviously the met test work. So it's going to be scalable. Going to kick off Seymour first. That will go into a concentrate on site and then down to a lithium hydroxide. And then as we bring the other up, so in the first column A, we started drilling at Root and then we're starting to move on to all the other projects that we have in our portfolio. Over there at Seymour flagship. So we're having great success right now. So there's been a lot of groundwork. So we did all the aerial geophysics, aerial photogrammetry. We then got onto the ground. We started doing all of the mapping. We did ground geophysics. And then we built our exploration model. One of the issues we were facing that some of the areas are covered in glacial till, just 0.5 meter. So what we did with the exploration model, we start to hit these breaks in the magnetic highs. And what we're finding is pegmatites. That picture with the drone, that's what it looked like. And we thought there was a pegmatite underneath. So we got the diggers and dozers in. We've got a whole fleet up there. And we pulled it back and there we go. There's the pegmatites, spodumene bearing. So we're having great success at Seymour. As I say, there's 2 complexes up there, the Albury complex and the Pi complex, and we're hitting both of them. Now, having mined pegmatites before for spodumene, what you need is a big fat ore body, and that's exactly what we got at Albury. And it's high grade as well. So that's going to be the first feed into the concentrator. As I say, at Root, second project, there's the camp, all-weather camp. That will take us all the way through, and we've got processing facilities on site as well. Good thing about Root is heavily underexplored. It was explored in 1950. It was rated one of the best projects in Ontario. We've picked it up. We've already started to hit drill rigs on Macomb. The drill rigs that then go over to Morrison. Known LCT pegmatite, stacked systems. We've had the geos swarming over it. So we've got 3 exploration crews up there. They've gone over to Root Bay. I've got a little WhatsApp chat on my phone. I said, every time you hit a peg, send me a message. So my phone's been going ping, 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 ping. So this is good news for Root. Infrastructure. So we're in I'll call it corridor. As you move north, infrastructure becomes less. As you move south, you get more infrastructure. We're in that infrastructure corridor. So all of our sites have all-weather roads. We have airports, fuel facilities, hospitals. So we're fully manned up for when we need to go into production. Seymour has got the Trans-Canadian rail line, goes through the southern end of our tenement. Root has the Wate power line. That goes through our tenement. So in terms of infrastructure, you know, we don't have massive infrastructure costs that some of these northern projects will have to face. We can't wait for those guys to get into production, but someone's got to get into production first. And that's what GT1 is about, first production. The reason why, the Americans just released the Inflation Reduction Act. That's put a fire under North America. What they're saying is half of the batteries need to come from domestic supply. Domestic supply includes Canada. We've been working in the US as well. There is a few issues of trying to get operations up and running there, that the permitting process takes a little bit longer. Hence why looking to Canada. As soon as you move north of the border, the first people you hit are GT1. So we're in a prime position. It takes you half an hour drive to get from Thunder Bay to Minnesota. So that's how close we are. So here's the, I guess, the snapshot. This is where we're getting to. So drilling won't stop. As I say, we've got the projects up there at Seymour and Root, resource updates every 6 months. Baseline and permitting's already kicked off. So essentially when we took the projects over, there was already 1 year of baseline done by Arden. We went to the mines department. We said, look, can we take that year into the bag and own it? And they said, yes, definitely. So we're in year 2. We've got 1 more year to go. And as I say, permitting's already kicked off. We've pretty much done the scoping study in Canada. You call it a preliminary economic assessment. All the work we're doing now is actually for feasibility. There's not like 2 studies you do. This just rolls through into a feasibility study. Big ticket items, first spodumene production. So you can see 2025, first hydroxide 2027. This is what it looks like. This is like a plan on a page. Made in Ontario. So when I've just got back from Canada, I landed, I said, right, Luke, you got an appointment with the Ministry of Mines and the mine minister. I was like, oh, here we go. He said, right, when are you getting into production? Their remit is to get a fully lithium supply chain in Canada. He's asked me, what do I need? I said, I needed permits. Right, let's talk. I need funding. Okay, the government has the ability to stump up a significant amount of CapEx for that lithium hydroxide plant. Also in Ontario, there's various downstream players that you've got the OEMs and the battery manufacturers and the chemical manufacturers are building their plants there right now, and they're looking for feed. There is currently no feed available in the area. So that's where GT1 comes in. So yeah, that's a snapshot. I mean, we're moving very fast. There's a lot going on. I almost feel like I'm on top of that wave and we're just steaming in. But yeah, watch this space. It's become very interesting. Thank you.
He's raising $50 million on a family holiday. That was pretty impressive, wasn't it? Imagine, how many kids have you got? Just 2. Underachiever. What were you thinking? I just said, you might have seen me on my mobile phone there just for a moment. I wasn't completely ignoring you, but I was thinking when you said that's what you did in the family holiday. And today I'm sitting here with all of you, which I love, and I love hearing the presentations. But one of my multiple children just graduated from high school today. So I was getting pinged all the pictures from the grandparents for that one, but I've got 4, so it's all right. There's others I can go and watch. They'll get their graduation another day. Right, team, we're going to go and have lunch. And because we have got one of our talks after lunch has been cancelled, we're going to have a little bit of extra time. So I'll ring the bell at 5 to 2 and I'll come and chase you and we'll all come back in and we'll enjoy the next half of the day. Thank you.